Akuni family, Akuni. Neesu Wushuwunoag from the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of the Americas. Tureygua Taíno from the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of the Americas. Very blessed, honored, and privileged to be having some dialogue with you this morning as we make our way back from visiting the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So we was just having some dialogue, reflecting upon how profound kind of everything that's going on is, and thought that we should capture these brief comments just because it's something that should be shared, because what just happened is very, very special and very impactful if you look at the work that creators been doing over the ages. So I'll first just ask the chief to properly introduce himself. I think this might be the first time he's been on one of the official FANA videos that go up. So Chief, if you would be so kind, sir.
Okama kwayari daneke bohio wariko choretu. Daka Tureygua Taíno kai. Diosana boria daka upia. Diosana boria daka ari. I am Tureygua Taíno kai. I am a servant of my ancestors. I am a servant to Creator, to Deity. I am the chief of the Sibuko Bayamon Taíno tribe, Kasiguang Trust Administrator, Priest King. I am here in my capacity as chief, and so I think it appropriate to introduce myself. And I also said at the beginning, hear me, my people, come into the roundhouse, come into abundance. And so this is the tribal motto or lema, and it is kind of a grounding way of looking at reality and at objectively at circumstances, because it's a stance on the way to view the world in abundance as opposed to limitation and economics. So we're about, and the stance of the tribe is about educating about our culture and the richness that we have, so that we may see the world through the eyes of our abundance and the abundance of the Creator, as everything is created in abundance, as opposed to looking at the world through the economic foreign white supremacist lens of limitation. Yeah, that's an introduction to myself and who I am. So for those who may have been following FANA and seen me but not really heard me say anything, yeah, that's a good understanding of my grounding and what our process in trying to bring together our clans in our utilizing of our ancestral systems and our group economics and our group identity and family grounding to move forward steadfast in a commitment to not lose ourselves in our ways. There it is.
Very nice, Chief. Chief, would you care to just share some remarks about where we just came from and what it was all about?
Well, when we talk about indigenous nations, we're talking about families, groups of families. We're talking about families that uphold cultures, that uphold ways of doing life, ways of being. And so this is the way that these families interface all over the world. Our families come together respecting who we are through acknowledging our culture, our indigeneity, and seek to build tomorrow at these meetings of our minds. We build ahead in unison. So it's like we go there to think about 100 years, 500 years, 50 years, in different time frames, in ways that we would work with each other for these period of time to advance our goals, to advance our mutual interests, and to build sustainability towards the three tenets of what are the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And so that's remedy, redress, repatriation. And that basically means moving forward, finding solutions to problems that we face, being able to address them or to correct what has been wronged, and being able to plant the seeds for the future. And so that's what's being done. That's what we go there to do. To think about how to preserve our languages, to think about how to preserve our knowledge, to think about how to preserve our wherewithal, our ability to be sustainable and to produce the fruits of life for ourselves and future generations. So that visit, that's what it was for me. And we're moving forward in ways that we're going to build forward in economics. We're going to build forward in ways where we provide our own media. We're going to build forward in ways where we provide our own literature and transfer to knowledge from our tribal grounding perspective of our ancestors. And that's different for each of us. There's many different groups there. There's many different groups that share the same language but don't share necessarily the same dialect. And so they have to plan differently in order for their self-preservation. And so we all come together to figure out how to do that.
Chief, we're at the United Nations. Now, there's often questions, actually someone asked it specifically on one of the FANA posts. Well, when is the United Nations and the other international powers going to do something about the individual indigenous people that were, why isn't that an effective stance to take, and why wouldn't you be able to be at the United Nations to address as an individual, what happened to you?
The individual is only measured in value in the current paradigm according to their consumer power. And so when you think individually, you're thinking from a consumer, from a capitalist commercial mentality. The grounding of, and the reason for the United Nations Forum on Indigenous Issues is because we're talking about an indigenous grounding. An indigenous grounding is a tribal grounding. It's a grounding and a way of looking at interfacing with commerce and business in terms of family groups, which are tribes and nations. So that's a whole different value set. There is no individual in terms of us talking about the United States of America or the European Union. So why would there be an individual when we come together to talk about Taíno issues or Algonquin issues or Lenape issues or Narragansett issues? There's no, it's not that you're going to come in there and say, no, I don't agree with what my tribe, I want my view to be over all of your views. When are you going to give me a check? When are you going to, that's not realistic, and that's not what the mechanism is for. That's not what the system is created for us to go and discuss the future of the tribe and nation towards its neighbors. They don't want to, it's not about the individuals in their tribe, it's about us as cultures and family units and nations and groups. Because who are you if not for who you know and who knows you? How do they say who you are? How do you say who that? You have to witness each other. This is, you're nothing by yourself, especially when it comes to issues that pertain to your culture. Because you're saying you are identifying yourself as this group of people, but then you're separating yourself from it when you say that you're just the individual. You know, that view on that individual is the same way that you might view your interaction with the IRS. But that's not what this is.
Very good, Chief. There's all of this talk about the copper-colored Aboriginal and everything that happened to him. And we know that the permanent forum is for indigenous people to address their issues. So we know that these sorts of things are taking place internationally. How do you feel, let me reframe that. Did you see any division or issues along color lines in terms of who was indigenous when you got into the permanent forum?
No, I did not.
And I bring that point up because what folk in North America, primarily the US, need to understand is that the world doesn't operate according to how things go in the US. That only happens in the US. In the US, you go by US domestic law. But when you get into spaces like the United Nations, you're dealing with things internationally. So your individual circumstances aren't primary. No one has to feel sorry for you. No one has to defer to you because of what happened to you. Because guess what? What happened to you isn't even what happened to you. Often it's what happened to your ancestors that you're still pulling up and saying they owe you something for. And then you go to the United Nations and you find that there's people now, right now, that are going through what your ancestors went through. While you're screaming and yelling about what happened to your ancestors 150, 200 years ago. So we need to get out of this Euro-colonial, and then specifically the US Americolonial mindset that the world revolves around our experience. It doesn't. Our experience is an example to the world because a lot of what happened in the Americas was then applied in other places around the world. If I'm not mistaken, that they say that Hitler modeled what he did off of what the US did with what America did to the Indians, in part.
And everyone is modeled what they're doing today to many tribes in the Amazon, Guaranis, and folks that were there at the United Nations right now, talking about the genocide that's going on right now for wood in their communities. The rape, the pillaging, the slavery, and murder that's going on right now. For folks that are going on through that right now. So, you know, we have to realize that the process of human beings getting to know each other or being introduced to each other has been traumatic globally and continues to be. We have to understand that we have our goals, and our stuff has to be, our whole view forward has to be aligned to moving forward from it, because it's still happening to folks right now, and they're using what they learned from the conflicts with our ancestors against these people today. So our opportunity is to use what we've learned from the conflicts and our surviving to build futures that are going to eliminate that tomorrow. It's back in its fourth, and it's still happening. So it's our responsibility to do what we have to do to secure ourselves, but also prevent that from happening in the future, because it's still happening down there. Some of those representatives are coming up here to talk to us. And what power do necessarily in other indigenous nations have to deal with a private logging or mining company that's murdering individuals? We can hear it. We can write future, create activism around it. We can unite with other governments so that they can create policies. But there's no stopping it for them right now. So what our place is to create the frameworks for tomorrow to eliminate some of these things from being able to happen in the same way.
And it's so important that we understand that here in what they call the US, because there are people who would look to us to share the knowledge and experience that our people utilize to get past that part of the oppression. What did your ancestors do to overcome when that was happening to them here? That is knowledge that we have through our experiences here in this place called the US, that is our responsibility, and what we should be doing is sharing. But what we see so often online is us debating about who read what, and us complaining about what happened to our people back then. And all of this takes us away from our responsibility and the true power that truly indigenous people from these lands have, because in the process of oppression and marginalization, we are at the forefront of it. Those of us who have these knowledges and these experiences from our ancestors that have been passed on to us. You're here where you are at this moment for a reason. Creator has you where you're at for a reason. Most of our problems and our drama comes from us not paying attention to what we're supposed to be doing, that Creator has been giving us, and focusing on how things aren't the way that we want them to be. And as soon as we do that, we're in ourself, in our ego, and we're not being guided by Creator. And I'm gonna share that to say this. We have been focused on all of the things that we do in FANA. What are we supposed to be doing in terms of the path that Creator was showing to our ancestors, that they were fighting for, that they bled and died for? What was that all about? And in following that path and picking up those responsibilities, applying the fact that it's not about the individual but about the collective. So what does that mean in this contemporary society? I want to show you how we attended the UN. Do you see that near? Neesu Wushuwunoag. Chief, would you just hold yours? Tureygua Kai. You see that there? We went in our true individual selves, representing our people who have collectively come together to establish this entity called FANA, which now is able to operate in this international arena, because we're taking the experiences that we have and applying them as knowledges to be tools to navigate today. Instead of whining and complaining that there's a United Nations that's not helping us, we went and saw how we utilized the United Nations as a tool to meet other families, to be able to share and learn about how we can address what's going on to us.
How we can build forward.
Now let's go there, and I'm going to turn this over to you, Chief. Please share. Well, first of all, I'm going to drop this knowledge. March 20th was the new year, if you're traditional. Spring equinox. The new year. Everything's fresh and new starting. Chief, please share what took place this past weekend before we came up to the United Nations.
This past Saturday, the Sibuko Bayamon tribe engaged in its Areito, which is a traditional celebration of ancestry, ancestors, memory, and culture, now at the Mashapog Pond on the territories, the traditional territories of the Mashapog Nahagansett. And we had our celebration of our culture on that land, in that place, together.
At this very, very spiritual event, I'll say it that way, because the energy was very good there. I shared remarks that this was nothing more than reestablishing relationships that had been going on for thousands of years prior to this interruption of European colonization. And I wanted to frame it that way because European colonization has been going on for what, 400 years? Roughly?
500.
500 years roughly. 500 years out of thousands of years is not a long time. In the grand scheme of things, we've not been being colonized that long. It's been a while, but it's not been that long. So in that regard, we should not look at it as a place that we have to stay or need to be at. And I would say also that it's a place where we're actually beginning to come out of. Because at this remark I shared, we're reestablishing these relationships that have been there for thousands of years. And as we were talking, Chief, I recall stating, wait a minute, the new year happened, and then your Areito took place in our lands. Why? Because the Spanish landed in your people's lands first, and then the Pilgrims came and landed up here in these New England territories. In a couple of weeks, Mashapag is holding its Planting Moon Social. And in between, we go to the United Nations and we make all of these talks of relationships that they establish. I pay attention to the spiritual lessons that we're supposed to learn and things that are supposed to be seen. And I see New Year, ceremony by the Taíno people, the first contacts in first contact lands for the English, followed by visits to the United Nations as who we truly are, representing our people, having applied the knowledges and using the mechanisms that were put in place to keep us marginalized and oppressed. And now we'll be following that up with ceremony based upon the planting moon, the time when you put things in the ground for them to grow, but you're required, Chief, and I'm gonna ask your thoughts on this, when you plant, when Creator gives you the rich soil and the seed to put in the fertile ground, what does it then take for it to grow?
It takes attention and care.
Attention and care.
Yeah. So, it takes that energy that then is harnessed from the richness of the soil into the plant, and the plant grows. For us, when we grow things, nature grows on its own. But when we're growing food, when we're growing the stuff that we utilize for life, it takes our gardening, it takes our attention, it takes our pruning, it takes our caring about it. So it was very nutritional in a spiritual way to have the Areito at Mashapag Pond, and to bring our cultures together and our people together to celebrate and move forward. And the same kind of attention and growth that we invest into the planting mood will help to build forward momentum and energy towards starting off the year in the right way. First, we acknowledge that the year is there. We walk in it, we walk in that victory, and then now we start to plant. And so this is gonna move forward, because it's like a ceremony. It's gonna move it forward to allow some of those relationships to become fruitful that we're working on here. And all it requires is attention and care. The attention is going to be given by the chiefs. The attention is going to be given by the leadership. The rest of the attention is provided by those who resonate with the future of the tribe and the family. That energy invested will help it to move forward and grow from the seeds that are being laid right now. This is the closing of, we've laid all these seeds, now let's grow it, let's follow it,
Spoken very well, Chief. I'm going to share my last remarks here. The Federation has been saying the same thing for years now. There's voices everywhere. There's individuals who tell you this and that they've studied this and they've researched that, can point to you to all of the things that happened, that are still happening. Our simple request is that you think about what have they actually done to address those things. Apologies, a little technical difficulties, but just wanted to share these last remarks. The space that we're in right now is the time that our ancestors were fighting for and dying for. And as you listen to all of these voices out there, I ask, what path have they shown to remedy? What have they demonstrated to you that would say to you, beyond what they say and how good it sounds, that's an actual path that can be followed? It's the family. The family is the foundation for all of it. When you get on an international level, the peoples deal with their families. And your past trauma that still plays out in a more sophisticated manner today, it is valued, but it is not to be a crutch. We should not be using our history and our experience as a crutch. And we should not be utilizing it as a form of feeling that we can obligate others to free us. It is on no one to free anyone but themselves. But the responsibility falls on others when they see you trying to free yourself and they do nothing to help. That's how that works. It's not on you to go to others and say, you ain't doing nothing to free me. It's on you to go to others and say, this is what we've been doing to free ourselves. Can you help? That's the manner that we approached our visit to the United Nations. And that's why, Creator willing, as you see our past moving forward, you will see the things that we plant as we tend to them and care to them, as the chief said, continue to grow and be blessed. So I will leave my remarks there, Chief. Do you have any final remarks that you want to share before we step away this afternoon or this morning?
I think that it's on us, like you were saying, to demonstrate what we are doing. And then it's on us, if our interests align, because I wouldn't expect someone who has adverse interests to my interests to align with me to help me with anything. So it's on us who have our aligned interests to work and figure out ways to move forward. But you're not going to come to ask anyone else about helping you if you haven't gotten your hands free or your feet free to get up and to do that. If I'm tied up, I'm not going to ask anyone else to help me. So I don't expect anyone who isn't in a position to be able to add constructive support to be able to help me. So this is why we go and we do our work, and then we go and we speak what we're doing to the international community and the international Indigenous, because some of them may be in a position to work with us. But I wouldn't expect for others who may not be in a position to help, so we're not asking anyone else for any help. We're not asking really anyone for help. We're demonstrating where we are and where we stand and contributing value to the conversations that then creates a reaction where people want to contribute value back to us. So this is why we're having good moments, we're having conversations and building forward relationships internationally, because we're already contributing value when we come in. So when we speak to our contemporaries and our other families in the diasporas, we speak about what we're bringing to the table. We're bringing in Areito. You're invited. I'm not asking you to come and do an Areito for me. I'm not asking you to come and do anything. I'm contributing value when I come. So this is what I think we've been doing, and that has allowed us to come into these spaces and continue to contribute value in ways that others value, and then want to continue that valuable relationship. And I think we're moving in that way, and I think that all who see this and recognize that it's that way, they should come in the same ways. You know, moving forward, what are you bringing to the interaction? Because we're bringing these things to the interaction. And so, you know, I would like for in the future, because there are going to be more cultural Areitos, tribal body Areitos, naming ceremonies, socials, where, you know, if you are not clear on what exactly is going on, just come with an open heart. Come with an open heart and build and come with an open hand and say how you can contribute to that. So then we can continue to contribute and move forward in productive relationships. And I say that out to the whole diaspora of Taínos, in terms of our cultural celebrations and our events. You know, they're open for our people to come, and if they'd like to, you know, we're all bringing something to the mix. So that's how I think we should come forward, being secured by our investment and what our grain of sand is for us to move forward. And it's a new year, so it's an opportunity to establish new relationships and create new production. And y'all have other opportunities to move forward, and there's one coming up. So I suggest to those who are viewing and who do care and who have an interest, you have opportunities to interface this coming planting moon. And yeah, we're looking forward to contributing our grain of sand and supporting to your tribe. And we say that just to the Areito time, and to the diaspora in general. We can build relationships and move forward, and we just got to know what we're going to contribute. Keep that in mind from the beginning. What are we going to contribute? Because when we go over there, we're thinking, what are we going to contribute so that we can create value and create these relationships.
Katabatis kasike, katabatis na tawa maguchi at chusuta, uni mosquito, kapish kanash. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, family out there. Good medicine. All right, got the technical difficulties fixed. Akoni kapish kanash. Please, the family, follow the path. There's a remedy that can be achieved. On behalf of the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of the Americas, Neesu Wushuwunoag, Tureygua Taíno Kai. Connect with you all soon. I hope.